All right, we're live and we have a lot to talk about today. So I'm copying the link and we will get going. Sweet. It's 5:18 p.m. Exactly 24 hours. I think that moment's going to come at 5:20 p.m. That's when the 49ers are going to be on the clock tomorrow, Thursday night. So we're finally here. It has been a marathon. We have tried to sprint the marathon. That hasn't been a good idea. Everybody's sick of this. Everybody's exhausted. Everybody's going stir crazy. Nobody knows what the heck is going on. In fact, I would argue that we know less about any sort of prediction or any gauge of what the 49ers will do than we did before this whole process started like 5 weeks ago. That's how crazy this past month has been. We have literally gone from point A, where we probably knew more and our minds weren't as muddled as they are now, to point B, which is now 24 hours out from the 49ers being on the clock, and we have less of a clue than ever, in my opinion. Because our last big data point, right, was the press conference on Monday with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. And no matter what you want the 49ers to do, whether it's draft Justin Fields, whether it's draft Trey Lance, whether it's draft Mac Jones, if there are any of you out there that want that, or if it's to do something completely crazy and draft Kyle Pitts, you can find an argument from that press conference on Monday that supports what you want and what you want to believe. And there are these little tribal echo chambers that have formed on Twitter now. The Justin Fields echo chamber, the Trey Lance echo chamber, the Mac Jones echo chamber, where I feel that people are able to gather and just bounce what they thought, worked in their favor from that press conference on Monday, and be convinced that that's what's going to happen moving forward. Now, I will say that the tone that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch took on Monday, you did see defensiveness about the potential pick. I will say that more people probably were swayed toward they're picking Mac Jones because of that than not. But it in no way was a definitive sway for me. I took that into account, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're picking Mac Jones. They could be preemptively defensive for anybody they're picking, and they can be preemptively defensive just to be preemptively defensive, not because they actually are feeling that way. Kyle Shanahan joined that call late. It was only supposed to be John Lynch. And one of the main things that they wanted to hammer home, and I think one of the main incentives that the 49ers would have, is to not let that pick get out in any way, shape, or form early. They've been adamant about that. They've behaved in that secretive way about this pick. So why would all of a sudden, on a whim, Kyle Shanahan want to blow his cover, show up on a press conference on Zoom, and be so defensive that everybody knows that Mac Jones is the pick? It doesn't make sense that he would want to broadcast it in that way. If he wanted to broadcast it in that way, why wouldn't Kyle Shanahan just come out and say that he's picking Mac Jones? Because I guarantee you that the Jacksonville Jaguars and the New York Jets aren't interested in Mac Jones. Okay, maybe in some alternate universe, the Jets, because they have a similar staff to the 49ers who worked under Kyle Shanahan, might be intrigued about Mac Jones. But let's get real. Nobody is worried that Mac Jones is going to come off the board before the 49ers can pick at number 3. And the theory is that maybe the 49ers were worried about that at number 12. I just think it's much more likely, based on all of the projections and all of the mock drafts and all the talk around the league, that there weren't very flattering opinions of Mac Jones out there before the 49ers traded up to number 3. So I feel, based on all that, you're trading up for a transcendent player. I think that's where the logic points. So that means Trey Lance or Justin Fields or Zach Wilson. That's the reason that we don't know anything right now. If Zach Wilson somehow falls down from the Jets to number 3, where does he fit into this whole mix? Where does Wilson compare to Justin Fields in the 49ers' eyes, or to Trey Lance in the 49ers' eyes? I mean, that's a whole other wrench here that we haven't talked about, and we won't know until 24 hours from now. So it's 5:22 right now, Pacific time. The draft starts at 5 p.m. Thursday. It's Wednesday, by the way, right now, in case any of you are watching this later. So on Thursday at 5:20 p.m., assuming that the Jaguars will have 10 minutes on the clock and the 49ers and the Jets will also have 10 minutes on the clock, the 49ers will be on the clock right around this time tomorrow. The next thing I wanted to talk about is Jimmy Garoppolo, because that obviously was a wrench thrown into the press conference on Monday that I think we could read in multiple different directions. The 49ers, up until Monday, had publicly very strongly expressed a lean toward keeping Jimmy Garoppolo. Did that change during the press conference on Monday? Yes and no. The first answer is famous now from Kyle Shanahan. When first asked about Jimmy Garoppolo's position on the 49ers roster and if Garoppolo would be on the roster come the end of the draft, so that's Saturday or Sunday, Kyle Shanahan said he couldn't even guarantee that anybody would be alive come Sunday, which obviously is a little bit morbid for a lot of people's tastes, and that went viral on YouTube. That, taken at face value, would seem to indicate that the 49ers are very seriously now considering trading Jimmy Garoppolo. And as I speak on Wednesday, a report came out of New England that the Patriots are actually preparing a contract in case the opportunity to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo presents itself. Because if you look at New England's cap situation right now, they only have about $15 or $16 million in cap space, and Jimmy Garoppolo would cost them well over $20 million for the 2021 season. So New England would have to do something to make room. One of the things they can do without giving up a player like Gilmore, the cornerback, who a lot of 49ers fans, I know a lot of you guys want Gilmore on your team, but without, having to give up Gilmore, which I don't think the Patriots necessarily want to do if they want to make a run at a title in 2021, they would have to give Jimmy Garoppolo a contract extension or some kind of new contract, something reworked to fit in that limited amount of cap space. Probably would include a really big signing bonus up front, because all of his signing bonus money right now was given by the 49ers, and it was a small signing bonus. It was a year-by-year pay-as-you-go kind of contract. So, when you connect the dots, New England working on a deal for Jimmy Garoppolo, the 49ers not completely committing to him last Monday, that, shows you that something's going to be possible this weekend, as it always was possible. But it might be more realistic now than it were 4 or 5 weeks ago, after the 49ers have gone through their process. And maybe going through their process, if they fell more in love with a quarterback who they ultimately plan to pick, maybe they all of a sudden feel that he might be ready to start week 1. Who knows? I mean, these are all questions that we're going to find the answers to this weekend. But the reason I wanted to talk about Garoppolo is that Shanahan's answer and Lynch's answer to Jimmy Garoppolo's future on Monday was much more complicated than people are making it out to be. They also mentioned that they're looking forward to working with Jimmy Garoppolo after the draft. And that didn't go viral. The part that went viral, obviously, was the part talking about everybody dying this weekend. So as you would expect, that had a little bit more click power on the internet, a little bit more retweet power. The longer, more nuanced part of Jimmy Garoppolo and the answer did not really make it, around the internet the same way that Kyle Shanahan's morbid comment did. So I just think that the underlying point is not to labor on the details, but it's just to see the big picture of how Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch were talking on Monday. And the big picture was that they offered a little bit of everything for everybody. One second, they're saying that Jimmy Garoppolo's not going to be alive on Sunday. The next second, they're saying that they can't wait to work with him after Sunday, right? So maybe they'll trade him, maybe they won't. You go to the number 3 pick. One second, they're defensive. The next second, they're laughing. One second, Kyle Shanahan is talking about how much he wants Drew Brees in his quarterback. The next second, he's talking about how great Lamar Jackson has been. And then 5 seconds later, he's saying that both, a combination of Drew Brees and Lamar Jackson would be ideal for the 49ers. So that's what I mean when you could sit down at this press conference and take any meaning that you want from it, depending on which camp that you're in. I just thought that there was just a hell of a lot of noise in that presser on Monday, and that is very emblematic of what's been going on over the last 5 weeks. There's been noise in every single direction. So we need to zoom out and take the big picture view if we're going to be predictive about what's going to happen tomorrow. And we might be wrong. We have to accept the fact that we might be wrong. It's okay to say, I don't know. That's what I'm going to say about what's going to happen to the 49ers tomorrow and what they're going to do this weekend. I don't know. As you guys know, my prediction is Trey Lance. And with that, I'm going to open it up to these questions because I know that there are a lot of them. So I'm going to go look at these questions. And if you guys want another explanation of why I think it's Trey Lance, I think it's a 2-horse race. I think it's Lance and Justin Fields. But if you want an explanation, I'll go ahead and give it again, because this is our last time that we, really get to talk before the real fray begins tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Do we actually have questions, or are these just comments? I'm looking through them. I also need to take a break, like a breath, In a podcast, you have co-hosts, not here. How tired am I? All right, we'll just go with the flippant ones first. I'm really tired, but I did get a good night's sleep last night. I'm now at my draft headquarters. I was traveling this past week through Idaho. That was a lot of fun, working on the road, as I've been doing a lot here over the past few weeks. But now I am situated at home in the mountains, ready for this. The TV is just to my right, your left, I guess, if you're looking at me. That's going to be on tomorrow. I'm going to get to bed early tonight. I'm going to swim in the lake tomorrow. It's nice and chilly in the lake. That will be my little pregame routine for the draft, and I'll be feeling nice and strong by the time that this all kicks off at 5 p.m. So I am tired, but I will be ready for what we have going tomorrow. I did wear this shirt last time, but it's been over a week since we've done this, so don't worry. It's been in the washer and in the dryer. Took it with me to Idaho. I was in San Francisco last night, so that was good. Got back into the city, ate a good burrito. Yeah, they have shopped Gilmore a few times. Well, Gilmore is for the Patriots is a contractual albatross there. I mean, it's not as big as a quarterback, but he's got quite the cap hit for the Patriots, and that's a team that went on a spending spree. They're looking to open up money, and Gilmore's one of the first guys you look at, because you're not going to look at one of the new contracts you just gave out. You're not going to cut Kendrick Bourne if you're the Patriots. It's going to be Gilmore whose money you're going to want to get rid of right there. It's Lancer Fields, according to Victor Martins. 2 weeks ago, I put out my prediction. I thought that based on logic, this would be a 2-horse race between Justin Fields and Trey Lance. And based on usage, based on familiarity with the offense, based on presence, I predicted Trey Lance. I may be wrong, but that's who my prediction is. I have conviction. I'm going to stick with it until something happens that causes me to completely turn the other way from the prediction. I don't think that something has happened yet. No matter how many times we get some kind of speculation that it might be Mac Jones, I think every time we have very good reason to believe that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have not divulged who this pick is to anybody outside of the building. And in that case, we have to follow logic, right? The other data point was the defensiveness from the press conference, but there's so many ways to explain that defensiveness than just, they must be picking Mac Jones. You have to weigh this, right? You have to weigh this like a jury. You have to weigh the different evidence. And so far, evidence-wise, the smoking gun, the big thing for me is a trade up from number 12 to number 3. Why would you do that for somebody who would still be there in all likelihood at number 12? And I know that Kyle Shanahan had his quote, the one I really disagree with, and I'm not even sure if Kyle Shanahan agrees with it. I just think that he was creating chaos on Monday. He said, if you're good with him at 12, you better be good with him at number 3. I mean, that's just a terrible concept and grasp of value. I mean, in that case, you should have been okay with Akello Witherspoon in the first round in 2017. Or why not just pick C.J. Beathard in the first round in 2017? I mean, it's clear the third round was already an overdraft for the 49ers, but if you don't care about value of a higher draft pick versus a lower one, you might as well just, start taking your 5th rounders in the first round. And the only player that would have justified that, obviously, is George Kittle, because he was worth way more than a 5th rounder based on how well he's played since 2017. But in general, higher draft picks should be reserved for more wanted players, right? You can't just be okay with using that number 3 draft pick on somebody who would have been available later, because then you're losing out in draft value. That other teams are beating you in how well they draft. So you have to understand where the value falls, and I don't think Kyle Shanahan fully meant that comment the other day. Whoever the 49ers pick at number 3, or whatever they do with that number 3 pick, is of consequential importance now. Because if the 49ers had just been terrible in 2020 and had just gotten that number 3 overall pick naturally, that would have been the cost, right? It would have just been a third round, a number 3 pick for whomever they choose. But because they weren't that bad, because they were a mediocre team instead due to all the injuries, and they were at number 12 instead, and they had to trade up 2 first-round picks from the future and a third-round pick just to move up from number 12 to number 3, there's a whole lot more pressure on this number 3 pick to be right. It's not just your run-of-the-mill number 3 pick or even your number 12 pick. This is loaded with pressure, and the 49ers have to do whatever they're planning on doing right to make it work on Thursday, which is exactly 24 hours from now. Okay, back to a few more questions. I've been talking for 15 minutes here. Is Kyle as rational as me about identifying talented quarterbacks? So we're going to find out what Kyle really thinks about identifying talented quarterbacks, because we've heard a lot from Kyle over the last 4 years, right? I actually thought that the path of action that the 49ers took regarding the quarterback position in 2017 made a lot of sense at the time. I mean, we can retroactively blast Kyle and John for a lot of things. A lot of people like to retroactively blast them for what happened in 2017 because Watson and Mahomes were still on the board when the 49ers picked, and after the 49ers picked, and obviously both of those guys turned into star quarterbacks. However, that being said, the 49ers roster was terrible when the 49ers inherited it. Shanahan and Lynch inherited it in 2017. It was atrocious. And their plan was to build the lines first, was to build through the draft at non-quarterback positions first. They signed Brian Hoyer to be a placeholder. They didn't sign him to be their franchise quarterback. And they also did not draft C.J. Beathard to be a franchise quarterback. They drafted him as the project, even though that was an overdraft in the 3rd round. So in my opinion, that first draft for the 49ers wasn't indicative of how Kyle Shanahan views quarterbacks, because he just wasn't even thinking. He was thinking long-term at that point for the 49ers to get some footing, get a foundation built under the quarterback so he wouldn't flame out on a terrible roster. Right? Then Jimmy Garoppolo fell into their laps, played really well in 2017. Obviously, they extended him. And obviously, they got some return on their investment from Jimmy Garoppolo, especially in that 2019 season. Let's not forget, they were good enough to head all the way to the Super Bowl and be very, very close to winning it. It wasn't until 2020 when problems really arose because of the injuries at the quarterback position, and the 49ers want to insulate that room now. And this is, in my opinion, because of the way that I just explained 2017, this is the first time that we should see Kyle Shanahan and his quarterback preference selection, his own handpicked guy. This is the first time we're going to get to see him make that real big decision. Because in 2017, there was a whole lot else going on. Well, hey, guess what? We're in 2021 now. The 49ers have bet the farm on this. They've moved up to number 3. Now there are a lot of talented quarterbacks on the board there for the 49ers picking. Now we get to see what Kyle Shanahan actually values instead of what we think he values. Up until this point, it's been stereotypes. It's been, oh, he's really like Kirk Cousins. It must be, Mac Jones because he's the most like Kirk Cousins. Or, oh, he likes this in a quarterback. He likes that. We haven't had Kyle firmly have to make a decision on a quarterback prospect that was certainly going to be a starter until now. Right? Until now. This is when we're going to find out what Kyle Shanahan actually wants. And I suspect that it's going to be a little bit different than what people assume Kyle Shanahan wants. And I think you could go back to his dad, Mike Shanahan, and the most success that he saw in the NFL happened with transcendent talents at the quarterback position. Now, that's a no-brainer. You have a great quarterback. You have a Hall of Fame quarterback. You're obviously probably going to be more successful, right? With Mike Shanahan, it happened with Steve Young with the 49ers and then John Elway with the Denver Broncos. But I think that, you could say that it's unrealistic to expect any quarterback to be Steve Young or John Elway, but I'll counter with this. If you spend as much draft capital as the 49ers did to move up from number 12 to number 3, you are looking for that potential type of transcendence. That's the cost right there. You've spent so much to move up. You're not looking for an ordinary Joe at this point. And sorry to Joe Montana, because Joe Montana was anything but ordinary. He was a lot more, but unfortunately, ordinary Joe shares the name with Joe Montana. I think the 49ers are looking for somebody, though, that can be transcendent. with how much they've spent. So I don't think that the whole, oh, John Elway, Steve Young has worked with Mike Shanahan, but that's unrealistic. I don't think that whole trope really works in this situation. I do think that the 49ers are looking for transcendence here. If they, do pull the quarterback, do pull the trigger on a quarterback at number 3 tomorrow. But it's going to be crazy. So I need to see more questions right now because I'm tired of talking so much. Let's make this a little bit more interactive. I don't agree with reports that it's down to Lance and Jones. I think it's down to all 3 guys. I'm not ruling anybody out, guys. I am fine with saying I don't know. This whole time I'm saying I don't know. I've made my prediction, Trey Lance. I know a lot of fans love Justin Fields. I know a lot of people love Justin Fields. And I know some people who, do think that the 49ers will pick Mac Jones. I wouldn't be shocked if any of those things happen. I know that upsets some people too, because they always want you to go out on some kind of crazy limb. This is no time to go out on a limb because you're just, giving yourself a strong probability of being really wrong for no reason. I think we just need to appreciate the totality of this all, the boldness of the move, the riskiness of the move, because as I just outlined, if it doesn't work out, the 49ers have given up a ton. It probably, spells an ending point on the Shanahan-Lynch regime if it doesn't work out. And you just, when you appreciate the totality of it all, you realize how big of a decision this is. And you also realize how little we know and how secretive the 49ers have been about it. So I'm not going to pretend that Mac Jones is some kind of favorite. I'm not going to pretend that Trey Lance is some kind of favorite. I'm not going to pretend that Justin Fields is some kind of favorite, especially since I don't even know who the New York Jets are certainly picking. They haven't officially announced they're picking Zach Wilson. They probably will, but we'll see what happens. Either way, I'm going to enter tomorrow, which is Thursday, with a really open mind, and I think that's the way to do it. My personal prediction, since people like to hear that, based on all the connecting of the dots, has been Trey Lance. I'm not afraid to acknowledge that, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. Okay. Would I rather have, or would the audience rather have Mac Jones or Nick Mullins? Nick Mullins just posted a goodbye Instagram. So I do not think that we'll see him back with the 49ers. I don't think anybody expected that, though. No, my prediction on Jimmy Garoppolo is not 100% gone. I could see anything happening this weekend. If you guys came to find absolute answers here, you will not find them because they don't exist. Remember, anyone dealing in absolutes is a Sith. That's my favorite Star Wars line that applies to this weekend. There are no absolutes right now until the 49ers put in their pick and Roger Goodell reads it out loud. The absolutes have not left Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch's office, nor do I expect them to leave Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch's office before then. Lance is lauded. This is another question, by the way. Lance is lauded for his experience calling protections at the line. Given that this falls to the center in Shanahan's offense, does this place a limit on Lance's value to the 49ers? No, it doesn't, because the center and the quarterback, there's an interplay between the quarterback and the center. They can both notice stuff about protections, and the quarterback can let the center know. The center can let the quarterback know. It goes back and forth. In fact, you want that battery in Kyle Shanahan's offense to be as smart as possible between the center and the quarterback. I mean, Steve Young played with Bart Oates, who was a Pro Bowl center. And Steve Young played with a lot of good centers. They had Jesse Sapolo, then the 49ers had Bart Oates, and they had Chris Dahlman, whose son is obviously going to be in this draft out of Stanford. But when you look at the peak of the 49ers offense under Mike Shanahan in 1994, Bart Oates called the protections from the line. Steve Young had a ton of responsibility from behind center, and a lot of times those two responsibilities overlapped, and those two guys got along really well. And look, the 49ers posted a record-setting offense. So, no, Trey Lance's brain, and Trey Lance is really smart. Alex Mack is also really smart at center. Those two would be a dream, I think, for Shanahan to work with and work his offense through, because both of those guys, I think, would be very astute, and they wouldn't let something like what happened against New Orleans last year for the 49ers happen, when that line completely broke against nickel blitzes. The slots of the 49ers last year trace back to problems at the center position. And I don't want to blame it on any specific center, especially when Daniel Brunskill was there because he had never played center before. You'd rather have Daniel Brunskill at a position where he can excel. I mean, he's been great at tackle. He's done good stuff at guard. At center, he was new to it. And he was the guy they brought in to fix the mess. You know, when they had Grossu in there against Seattle, that was another disaster on the road. So the 49ers just need experience and acumen at quarterback and center to be able to best diagnose those blitzes. And I think that's going to make the whole offensive line better. You know, everybody talks and criticizes Mike McGlinchey, but I think Mike McGlinchey is going to be a lot better with Alex Mack in at center. I think that's going to have a ripple effect on the whole line. How are we sure that the Jets are taking Zach Wilson? We aren't sure that the Jets are taking Zach Wilson. We could think it's very likely, but we certainly aren't sure. What do you think they should and will do if the Jets throw a curveball and take Fields? You know, I think that there's a strong prevailing theory out there right now that the 49ers are behaving the way that they are because they don't want to tip off the New York Jets staff that they really like Justin Fields, right? If you know, you look at the Jet staff, what 70% of it is probably ex-49ers coaches. If they catch wind of the fact that the 49ers really like Justin Fields, the Jets, by extension, with LaFleur over there, obviously with Saleh over there, he's a defensive-minded coach, but they have LaFleur there. They have a lot of guys there, right? John Benton, the offensive line coach, ex-offensive line coach of the 49ers. Those guys catch wind of the 49ers potentially liking Justin Fields. The Jets are going to look really hard into Justin Fields. And if Shanahan really loved Justin Fields, well, you could see that he would lose Justin Fields that way because the Jets are number 2. However, if that did happen, then yes, Zach Wilson would fall to number 3. Do we think that Zach Wilson is somebody the 49ers would like more than a Trey Lance? Based on, you know, just inklings that I've heard from people who know their stuff, but may not necessarily have a connection to the 49ers building right now, I think that the 49ers would really like Zach out of BYU. I can't be sure, though. I can't be sure about who they're picking at number 3 tomorrow, even if Wilson stays on the board there, or even if Wilson is not on the board and the Jets take him at number 2. It's all going to be fascinating stuff based on that. Lance has accuracy issues and Fields has processing concerns. By the way, this is a question. I'm not saying this, but the question from Doug Robbins. Lance has accuracy issues and Fields has processing concerns. Which problem can be more easily fixed? Good question. I think it all depends on the scheme. Within the context of the scheme is how you develop your projection for a certain quarterback. I believe that accuracy, especially the accuracy issues that I've studied regarding Trey Lance after talking to, you know, some quarterback coaches, quarterback evaluators, you know, some of the film gurus, Trey Lance's accuracy issues come from some fundamental problems that he has as far as technique goes, footwork, you know, just shoulder weight, all those different things. And a lot of people were very impressed with how much progress Trey Lance made from the final game of the 2019 season, because we only saw him play once in 2020, to his first pro day. His second pro day was closed, but his first pro day was open. Everybody watched it on TV. And supposedly a lot of the mechanical issues that Trey Lance had when he was, you know, a very green starter, let's put it that way, in 2019, supposedly those, you know, a lot of those had been cleaned up by that first pro day. And then the 49ers made their trade shortly thereafter. So are those two things connected? I mean, you could say that they might be, but we don't know, right? But I will offer that there is a sense amongst people in the league that Trey Lance's accuracy issues are fixable. Justin Fields obviously did struggle at times, you know, picking up a certain blitz, and he did take some negative plays because of that. And that is the knock against Justin Fields. I also think that the league believes that those issues are fixable. But this goes to the larger point that no quarterback is going to be his best self on day one in the NFL. And I think that's where we have to rope the whole Jimmy Garoppolo talk into this. If the 49ers do give up Jimmy Garoppolo, I think you are giving up your best possible option in week one of the 2021 season for the reasons that we're outlining. There still is a rawness to Trey Lance that's obvious. There still is a rawness to Justin Fields when it comes to the context of performing in the NFL. And I think that there's still a rawness when it comes to Mac Jones as far as performing in the NFL. So that's why I think the 49ers would not be wise to move off of Jimmy Garoppolo, even if the pick is Mac Jones. I don't think he's somehow more ready to immediately embrace the challenges of the 49ers offense than a guy like Justin Fields. I think, or, especially than a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo. I think there's still going to be a learning curve no matter who the 49ers pick. And if they are going to move off their starting quarterback right now, is Jimmy Garoppolo, in favor of one of these rookies, they better be getting a lot back that helps them be better in 2021. Otherwise, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. You're walking on a treadmill, as I said on the radio this morning. You're getting, better maybe for the future, but you might be losing a couple games because of inexperience in the present. And if the 49ers are truly in win now mode, as I think that all the finances indicate that they are, their behavior indicates they are, if they're in that win now mode, you don't want to give up a game or two in the present. That could be the difference between a division title and number one seed or a wild card berth or the playoffs, So the 49ers are treading in tricky territory when it comes to Garoppolo, when it comes to this pick at number 3. And they just need to make sure, given their option power, that they optimize value at all costs this weekend. And that's going to be really interesting. Another question. How far could these rookie quarterbacks take the 49ers? Now, it depends on how fast these rookie quarterbacks develop. If they develop quickly, I think the ceilings are extremely high for these guys. The problem, though, is the games that slip through the cracks early in rookie quarterbacks' careers. So say that you pick Justin Fields and he has a tremendous, arc toward his upside that he shows in year one in 2021. But even if that happens, and if that does happen, I think the 49ers can go really far. Then you can go to the Super Bowl if this guy has tremendous progress early on. It is risky. It's never happened before, but given the roster the 49ers have, I can't say that we've seen a rookie quarterback enter a situation where the roster this good before too. So we're in uncharted territory. But let me put it this way. Even if everything goes as well as the 49ers could possibly hope, there could still be that game or two earlier in the season that slips for you, that goes into the loss column that otherwise wouldn't have gone into the loss column because of the rookie quarterback. And then you look to see just how thin the margins were the last time the 49ers went to the Super Bowl in 2019. They went 13-3 that season, and they went 13-3 by literally 1 millimeter at the goal line against Seattle, or one throw against New Orleans, right? If any of those things doesn't break in the 49ers' favor, that team does not have the number one seed, and I highly doubt that they make the Super Bowl. So when the margins are so thin, you can't afford to just give up regular season games. And that's going to be a calculation that the 49ers have to make if there is no Jimmy Garoppolo on this roster and they do go to a new quarterback. They're going to have to figure out a way to make sure that they solve that bridge, whichever way they do it. They need to make sure they're not slipping games early in the season because that can get bad. But to answer your question, I think that the ceiling, especially in my opinion, for guys like Fields or Lance, is extremely high, and the 49ers can go very far with them, but maybe not immediately. So that's why they have to figure out how to best bridge that 2021 chasm. Another question. I'm looking back down here. Matt Jones is the guy. Well, Matt Jones is not a player. It's Mac Jones. There you go. Mac Jones. He could be. I am. My thing about Mac Jones and all this talk is that I thought that Kyle Shanahan gave signs in every direction the other day. Maybe they were stronger toward Mac Jones. Maybe they weren't. I like to find things out in firm before I jump off and make any grand conclusions. And that's why I can't wait for tomorrow. You mentioned, this is another question. You mentioned this on Twitter, but do you think it's more likely the 49ers will do more trades up this draft for more picks in future drafts or for vets instead, given the limited 53-man roster space? I'm not really sure what you're asking, but I do think they could trade up if that's what you're at. Oh, okay. You're asking if the 49ers are going to do more trades up or if they're going to do more trades for picks in the future. That's a good question. I think that they're going to do trades regardless. I think they're going to consolidate some of their picks into capital that can be used on something else, whether that be a player this year or future players remains to be seen. It probably depends on how much they like a guy in this year's draft. So that's another question that won't be answered until this weekend. Only a couple more because it's been 35 minutes. And this is a long one already. Do you think the 49ers should keep Garoppolo? I don't even know who they're planning to pick at number 3. I don't know what the plan is. That's why I just lay out all the options. If I were running the 49ers and I were in this current situation, I would have to know Trey Lance better if I did follow through with my mock draft prediction and pick Trey Lance and know where exactly he would be weeks 1 through 8, and that would heavily inform my decision of whether or not to keep Garoppolo. I mean, there's so many variables that go into this, guys. It's really hard to just answer these questions point blank. It's tough. It really is. So that's going to depend on what the 49ers think of these particular players, and especially the one that they actually pick, and how they factor that into their winnability, in the 2021 season. All right, I'll finish it off with some check because somebody requested to hear some check, and that will be it. I'll sign off in check. Tak už se hodně těším na zítra. Bude to hodně dobrý. Myslím si, že 49ers vyberou hodně dobrého hráče. Myslím si, že vás to překvapí. Myslím si, že to nebude ten hráč, který si hodně lidí myslí, a teď si musím jít najíst. I actually just told you who the 49ers are going to draft tomorrow in check, so you can get on to your translating. All right, see you guys later. Tomorrow, 5 p.m. is the draft. It's going to be a lot of fun, so follow along this weekend wherever we are on YouTube, Twitter, or The Athletic. Make sure you subscribe. All right, take care, guys.